In this video, I'm going to be playing through Tetris for the NES while giving you soft commentary and rain sound in the background, hopefully helping you fall asleep fast. Don't worry, there's not going to be any big jump scares or anything crazy. It's just Tetris, falling blocks, just being grouped together. There's nothing to it. Just lay back, relax, and let me take over for a while. Let your mind rest. And before we really get into it, I want you to sit back, relax, and just let your mind go. Whatever you're thinking about right now, whatever you're worried about, whatever's bothering you, we're going to forget about it right now, because all we're going to worry about is making sure that we get these blocks in the right place. All right, I'm here. I am going to take over everything. You don't need to worry about anything. We're just going to watch these blocks fall. And if we fail, we fail. It's not a big deal. It's just Tetris. All right? So just relax and let's get into this wonderful game. But before we do that, one more thing. If you're watching the shorts version, go ahead and click the bottom of your screen, which will have a link to the full version. All right? Let's just relax and get into this. There's nothing to worry about. Just falling blocks. Like I said, if we just don't get the right combination, it's fine. Not a big deal. We'll just start over and try again. This is actually my first time playing this particular version of Tetris. I actually was never someone that played a lot of Tetris, but according to ChatGPT, it's one of the most searched games, so I thought I would go with the Tengen version, which is actually made by Atari, if I'm not mistaken, and they basically made it because, well, they wanted money, but what I was saying is the whole Tengen thing was because Nintendo had some licensing stuff back in the day where you could only make a certain amount of games per year by the contract. So a lot of companies like Tengen, which was Atari, that we know that now. And then there was also Ultra Games, which was actually Konami, believe it or not. And they would just make these games with this different label so they could basically double dip on the profits, which was pretty genius, honestly. I wish I would have thought of that, but I wasn't born back then. I was born in 1989, so I actually kind of missed the boat on that sort of drama, but, I still remember the NES. My first game actually was Gunsmoke, and believe it or not, I actually played it last night. And I had a lot of fun with it. I might play it on the channel. I'm not sure yet. It's pretty difficult, and it was basically a vertical shooter set up as like a cowboy game, kind of like Red Dead Redemption of the 80s kind of thing. It was like an auto scroll the entire time. You basically just move forward and just shoot all the enemies, and it was like a one-hit death thing. Same kind of ideas of Kari Warriors or really any, top-down shooter from the day. And it was a lot of fun, but it does get very difficult in the later stages. And that makes sense because it was an arcade game originally by Capcom. So the entire point was to be difficult so they could take your money. It's actually really relaxing because, you know what? I know you can't hear it because there's really loud noises every time there's a line removed, but there's literally no music in this game. It's just, there's nothing there. The only sound you hear is that, noise that happens every time you clear a line is what I was trying to get to. But I like Tetris. It's basically been ported to everything. Literally, calculators even had Tetris, I think, at one point. I know PDAs had it. I remember seeing those. If you remember what a PDA is, good for you, because, that means you're around my age. But for the younger crowd that don't know what a PDA is, it was basically kind of like an iPhone before an iPhone. It was basically a device back in the day, back in, ancient times, you might say, where it was called a personal digital assistant. So it basically had like a calendar and, a little address book. There was, in there we could digitally keep, people's addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that. And it was basically what your phone does for the most part, but it couldn't call anybody, We also had pagers back then, which was basically a little thing that could, I never had a pager, so I'm not sure exactly how they worked, but I know it would be, you would call someone's pager and like it would beep and it would like say such and such paged you, but I don't know if it actually left a message or not. Like if it had a little, message on the screen saying what the person wanted or whatever. I don't think I ever had a pager. I wasn't around, like I wasn't, alive when pagers were a big thing. By the time, I would even need something like that, we had cell phones, flip phones, which were the big thing, and move to the next level. Speaking of cell phones, Tetris is probably on every cell phone. Probably was on every cell phone even when they first came out. As flip phones. I remember a big thing for cell phones, which is crazy, was people would be like, does your phone have Snake? Which I can't even remember how you played Snake, but it was such a popular thing that's like, if your phone could play Snake, it was so cool, man. It was just like a little, Tiger Electronics type game, a little pixel game. Oh, we got a game over. It's fine. We're in a bonus round anyway, so we're just gonna go back and do it again because there's no big deal. Let's do versus computer. Oh, you can pick the music. Okay, that's kind of chill. That's not chill. That's not chill. It wouldn't help you sleep, but that's a pretty chill beat right there. The Loganska. That's actually pretty relaxing. Kind of a soft, alright, we got a bad piece right here. Let's start this one over because we're not the whole video, but like just that particular game, because we were getting bad. We were getting bad opening pieces. Speaking of bad opening pieces, here's another one with bad opening pieces. If we can maybe slide this L in there, we'll be good. Yep, we got it. Even if we didn't get it, it's not a big deal. It happens. It's sort of like solitaire, not every hand is going to be a winner. Just like Tetris, not every hand is going to be a winner either. But it's not a big deal. If you lose, you just play another game, Low stress, low effort, low, it's not a big deal. I don't know why I just started thinking about Candy Crush. I never actually played Candy Crush. I wonder if people thought of Candy Crush as kind of like the Tetris of the day. I just remember I had a coworker back in the day, who I didn't get along with near the end, and he actually got me fired, I think, because we had conflict, because he started the conflict, and he got to stay, but I was thrown out. It wasn't a fight, but, you know, we had an argument once because he just was demanding impossible stuff, and I think it was a setup anyway. They were just trying to get me to freak out because they wanted a recording of me doing something fireable, which they didn't get, but which was so stupid. It was such a stupid situation, but that was like 10 years ago. But anyway, he used to play Candy Crush all the time. Like, he would hide in the parts room and play Candy Crush the entire day. And then, like, he'd be like, oh, well, I was working on this thing all day, and I didn't get nothing done because I was having trouble with my server. I'm like, yeah, you were having trouble with your freaking phone playing Candy Crush all day, bro. I mean, we could see you in there playing that. Like, you would literally just stand there during meetings and just be, slowly swiping away at your phone or whatever, It's like, whatever, bro. I liked him though. I really did like him, but then I think they were just trying to get rid of me for some reason. I don't know what it was, but they just were. I don't know. Then after I was gone, they purged everybody that was remotely, friends with me or whatever. They just found reasons to fire all of them. And half of them quit, and half of it was like, we were making good money, but like half of them really quit or got fired after I was, fired unjustly. And I mean, that tells you something when people, one of them, I swear to God, when I left without incident. I didn't talk bad. I didn't argue with anybody. I didn't MF anybody on the way out. I just said, look, all right, well, can I give you 2 weeks? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, bye. Give them the old Powers Booth from Tombstone. Well, bye. Kind of thing. Didn't start no drama or nothing. I didn't, cause a mutiny. I just left, and I didn't text anybody saying F these people or, they screwed me or anything. I just went home. And honestly, at that point in time, I was kind of happy to be out of there because I felt like I got parole from prison because of all the stupid drama that was going on at that point. So I was just like, all right, whatever, I'll go get another job. They even for some reason decided to say, oh yeah, we got another job lined up for you where you live now. I'm like, all right, whatever. Your recruiter's going to call you and you have a new job lined up. Okay. Turned out the recruiter didn't even know I got fired, so they were lying for some reason. Whatever. And that was honestly like my last proper job before I opened my shop and worked for myself from then on, because I was just like, well, I've done enough in tech to know that I don't want to be working in these toxic environments anymore, so I decided not to, and then I just started working for myself, and now I do YouTube as a job, really. More of a hustle than a job. I mean, I do other stuff to pick up the slack, but YouTube's one piece of the entire puzzle. Speaking of puzzles, we're playing Tetris. Of what I do basically to survive. So I don't work a regular day job, but I do a lot of I do odd jobs, and this is a good source of income when I was doing the reaction stuff before that all crashed, with this new lawsuit that's going on. And I wasn't sued, but I dropped out so I wouldn't get sued by anybody. Even though I would have won, I didn't want to deal with the headache of it. So I just said, I'm done. I'm just like, well, all right, whatever. This is kind of like not going to work. If that's what we're going to go towards, is that kind of thing. And, but back to that guy. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Basically, I left with that incident. I didn't MF anybody. I didn't say you whatever bad word. I said, I was like, well, can I have 2 weeks to, fix my, set up my thing, train whoever's gonna replace me, or at least, give, my project some, closure, because, they were gonna have someone else take over, but they didn't want that. They wanted me out. They were like, oh, hostile work environment because you and him can't get along. And it's like, well, he started it. I mean, he's the one that, came in demanding that I do my job and his job. And I'm just like, dude, I don't have enough hours in the day to do that. And he didn't like that. So whatever, he ended up dying from heart disease later. So, I feel bad for his family. I really do. And then the guy who screwed me over later, who was my best friend up there, he also died from heart disease about a year after that guy died. And me and that guy, like, that's the thing, like, those people, here's the problem. The reason I'm even talking about it this much later is because, well, first of all, it was a huge part of my life. It was the last job I had. That was a proper work for someone else thing. And also I'm just making conversation. But we're going to start another game of Tetris because this one isn't working out for me. It was just like it was a very important part of my life, and, sometimes I miss it a little bit, but, at this point I wouldn't be able to deal with it again. But it was just nonsensical, and that's what really pushed me to be a YouTuber and to be self-employed, doing what I do, in real life, running a small-time eBay store, selling electronics that I, can buy and flip, selling guitars that I can buy and flip, stuff like that. I'm not going to link it because I don't want to dox myself, but, just check either one of them to see if it might be, the seller, and, I was just like, what happened basically was after that, I coasted on my, savings for a while. And then Dad, wanted me to move back with him to help him because my stepsister was moving out and going to another state with her boyfriend. And he didn't want to live alone. So I was fine with that. And I came back to, stay with him. And then he got really sick. And, he had his liver issues and that got worse and worse and worse. And, I ended up being his caretaker for about, 5 years. And then I was also running my shop because he was having issues, but I also needed to make money because, he wasn't paying me because, obviously I wasn't asking for money either, because I'm already sitting free, but I also want to make sure that if he passes away, I'm not screwed. So I was working my, day job, and most of that was just, someone would call and say, I need something fixed. And I'm like, all right, meet me at the shop in, 10 minutes kind of thing, when people would call. And sometimes I go down there for, the full day. But sometimes I do really miss that, even, just having somewhere to go. But, anyway, that's what I ended up doing. And now I'm doing this plus, selling guitars and, eBay, really. That's what I do now. Is basically buy, sell, trade kind of thing with, stuff I can find. But I couldn't go back to working at that place. I mean, if I had to, if I was flat broken. You know, the stuff I'm doing now didn't bring me enough to eat. You know, of course I go back, but I'm just kind of at that point in my life where I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want drama. I want as little drama, as little headache as possible. That's why I took the 90% pay cut from doing reaction videos to this, because I was just like, you know what? I'm too old for this drama. You know, H3H3 decided he wanted to sue people, you know, out of spite because he didn't like them. And that's what it really was. Let's be real. He did it because he didn't like those people, because they, you know, were talking crap about him. So he decided that he wanted to throw a tantrum and sue people. And, yeah, that's what I think of that. That it was just immature nonsense. But now, which I think is insane, by the way. People thought I was crazy. I think they're like, oh, Johnny, you know, he's never going to come for you. He didn't, because I don't talk about him. But there was an update that came out recently to this situation that made me walk away from doing reactions, that made it 100 times worse, which was, he's not only suing 4 creators. I think it's 4. It's 3 or 4, because I think he added someone else to it. He's not only suing 4 different creators, if you want to call them creators, but he's also gonna sue Reddit. Yeah, he's gonna sue Reddit. Why? Because they allowed a subreddit to exist that he didn't like, that talked, you know, bad about him, like they talk crap about him. So he's gonna sue Reddit, you know, for hosting links, you know, links, to the videos that he said were copyright infringement. So instead of just, you know, filing a DMCA and getting them taken off, you know, Twitch, you know, for legal reasons, he wants to actually sue these people, you know, to sue for damages, for lost income, I guess. And, you know, he's also going to sue Reddit, he said, because they allowed this subreddit that makes fun of him to exist, and also post links, which are just URLs, you know, to the video streams, like where they had basically a bulletin that said, you know, here's where you can watch these reactions to that video, and he's blaming them for it. So he wants to basically dox, which means get the real life information of all the people who are moderators there, to basically out them and threaten them, you know, with not only legal action, but also real life danger to themselves and their families. All because they made fun of him on the internet. So I saw that and I'm just like, bro, I'm done. If we're getting into this territory where people are going to start suing each other, you know, it's going to open Pandora's box where people are going to be able to use that to sue you for non-legitimate reasons, or just use it to intimidate people by saying, if you don't, you know, do what I want, I'm going to sue you, kind of thing. And, you know, I don't, it's not that I wouldn't be able to afford it. It's that I don't want to have to afford it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, if you can afford, like, let's just say, for example, I can't, but let's say I could afford a Ferrari, right? I could have, just example, I can't afford one, but let's say I could. Let's just say I had $250K and I'm like, okay, I can go to the dealership right now, pay cash for a Ferrari, right? I could, but I don't want to. Why? Because it costs 250 grand. To me, the Ferrari would not be worth me losing 250 grand, you know, for that car. And even if I had, you know, $2 million or $20 million, I still wouldn't buy a Ferrari, because I don't, it's not, it doesn't bring me value. I'd rather put it in an investment that grows over time, and enjoy that income, the excitement of that income, winning, then throw it away, in my opinion, on a car that's going to depreciate, and never, depreciate, if you don't know what it means go down in value, and appreciate means go up in value. So this is not financial advice. This is just me trying to, bore you to sleep, basically. If you buy a house, most of the time it will appreciate, unless something, neighborhood goes down or something bad happens to the neighborhood, house catches on fire, stuff like that. But for the most part, your house should appreciate a certain percentage per year, and it's not going to outrun the stock market, but it will. Some people just like to have that as an investment, whether you want to do it as a rental property, or you just want to keep it to hold it, or you want to sell it later, or you want to live in it, whatever you want to do with the house. That is an appreciating asset over time. It's a property, right? And it could go down, but most likely will go up, right? A car, like a Ferrari, will go down in value, period. It just will. They don't appreciate at all. There is no such thing as investing in cars. If anyone tells you there is, that's BS. They're trying to sell you one. Because the car will eventually become damaged to the point that its market value will be lowered, where the fixing the problem with, especially those European cars that are really expensive, like, Mercedes and BMW and all those have major problems, and they're also a major headache for American mechanics to work on, from what I've heard, that they eventually become too expensive to even repair. Like, perfect example, I have a beautiful, car that I love, or loved when it ran, which is a Buick LeSabre. It's a granny car, but it was so smooth on the road that I loved driving it, but the transmission went out. And because the car is only worth like $5,000 now, when it used to be worth like, 20 or 30 or whatever that was worth when it was brand new. I don't know what it was worth, but it went down because, transmission's gone. It would cost me $3,000 to replace it. And a used one that would have a good transmission would cost less than that. So it's a depreciating asset. That's just how cars work. But a house is completely different. And also, your ETFs, which are, stock market related stuff, generally, you hope that those appreciate, and they usually do. Historically, they do, but you never know. We could have, a mutiny or a civil war or something happen. I don't know, something that'll make it bottom out, which is pretty rare unless you're going with something stupid like penny stocks. We're gonna lose this level because that computer is way ahead of us. We're just gonna go ahead and restart. Play again. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, even if you can't afford something, you shouldn't, or I personally would not, buy something that is going to lose value, especially if it's something overly expensive. I buy out of necessity when it comes to that. So I bought a truck because I knew for a fact that after my father passed away, rest in peace, I was going to need a truck to handle his estate, because at that point I thought I was going to be the executor. So I knew that the truck was going to be a valuable thing to help me, move stuff out of the house and, take it to an estate sale if we were going to do that. And, just be able to clean up the house, because it was pretty messy. It still is. But I knew that I was going to be able to use it for something that would be worthwhile. It was not a vanity purchase. But I did get a good truck because I didn't want to have it in the shop constantly, obviously. So I didn't get a fancy Toyota Tundra for 30 grand or whatever. I just got a very basic, very reliable Ford F-150. That was, I'm not the biggest Ford fan, but, it was something that was, what was reliable based on what I had heard for that model in that year. It was not a fancy one at all. It just doesn't even have a what do you call it, GPS or anything in it. It's just a very basic, the most basic 2018 F-150 XL, which is just the most base model you can get, with no real amenities except for a backup, like the thing where like you can see behind you when you back up, and a Bluetooth radio, and that's it. Nothing else. No GPS, no navigation, no leather seats, nothing. So, and no seat warmers, none of that. It's just a basic truck, as basic as you can get. And that's why I got that, but that was out of necessity. That's the difference. You don't need a Ferrari. A Ferrari is not going to be a utility vehicle that will help you do something important, Like, let's say I wanted to go buy a half stack, which is a very large guitar amplifier. I could go do that. I could go find one on Craigslist, buy it, use my truck to attain it, and bring it home, and then sell it for a profit. So the truck is a utility because of that. So that's where, if you're going to buy a depreciating asset, in my opinion, you're a lot better off buying something that is a utility to you, not something that's a vanity metric, like a fancy car. Once again, not financial advice. I'm just basically trying to bore you to sleep. Because I imagine that's not exactly the most exciting topic, hearing about, assets and stuff. But sometimes, if I really, the thing was, I would have been perfectly happy getting a 20-year-old truck if I could have found one for a decent price, but they don't exist. They just don't. They were like, buy my 100,000 plus mile truck for like 14 grand kind of thing. It was ridiculous. And, I would have bought one of those if they were more like 8 or 9 grand, as long as it ran well. And, they don't exist because of the truck market being so inflated. But I've even thought about, it's like, if I saw a truck that was a lot cheaper and I could, sell my current truck and get that truck cash, I would. But still, the truck market doesn't have that right now. So I've thought about doing that because I'm not attached to this truck. I'm not like, oh, this is my dream truck, And if I could find an old Toyota Tundra in really good shape that's not rusted out and not, broken down with a bad transmission or whatever, I'll go get one because it's a reliable truck and I don't need any bells and whistles as long as it has a Bluetooth radio or a radio period. I could even install a radio. Let's be real. I don't need even a Bluetooth radio. As long as it runs, it runs. I would get it. But they don't exist. Not near me anyway. They just don't. Like, it's rather buy a piece of crap or, spend too much for a truck. But I think I got a good deal for my truck, honestly. And it's already paid off, so it's not a big deal. It's paid off now. But like I said, if I could find like, a nicer old truck and then, pocket the difference and, pay some bills with it or whatever, maybe invest a little, I would. I'd be happy to do that. Because it's not a vanity thing, it's a utility thing. But I will say that I will never buy a car again. I will always buy a truck because of how useful a truck is to me personally. Like, it's just, when you don't have a truck, you always have that problem of, do you know anybody who has a truck? Because there's always something you need a truck for, you know? That was another bad one. We didn't get anything on that, but that's fine. Let's play again. I'm chill. I'm relaxed this morning. Yeah, but that's what I do. Is just, I think of things in utility. I don't buy anything unless A, I can use it as a utility thing that will bring me some type of, that was a terrible start. Let me start that over. Whether A, it's utility, B, it's a necessity like food, water, you know, uppa stuff, you know, taking care of the little girl and all that. Or that's really it. Like, it's a utility thing. It's a necessity. I don't buy luxuries at all. I think that's a good way to go broke, is to buy luxuries. Like, even I have a ton of guitars, for example. And if you saw my guitar collection, you'd be like, oh my God, you know, look at all those. They're so pretty or whatever. I'm like, yeah, they're pretty, but they're for sale. All of them. You know, all of them that are mine. Not anything Dad left behind. That's estate stuff. But the stuff that I personally bought, I bought it to sell it. I didn't buy it to play it. I bought it to sell it for a profit. And I do sell it for profit. You know, those aren't luxuries. Those are just, you know, inventory for the thing I'm doing to make money. So if anyone ever does come over here and see that, no, that's not me blowing my money on, you know, trying to show off or whatever, you know, wasting my money. No, those are literally bought to sell. They're not even played, most of them. Because I don't want to lose any value on them, so I don't even touch them. I buy them, I inspect them, I put them back in the box, and then I list them on Reverb. That's all I do now. You know, I buy them, I inspect them, make sure that they're not broken, make sure that everything, you know, there's no cracks, there's nothing wrong with it, you know. Make sure that everything's stable, nothing needs to be tightened up, and if it does, I'll tighten it up, you know. Or fix any issues that do show up, you know, small issues, of course. Just like, you know, if the frets are a little bit sharp, I can just file them off real quick or whatever. You know, just give it a quick, you know, a quick polish, basically. And then right back in the box and out the door. Like, you know, I literally have like 3 of them in my dad's old bedroom right now that have not been played once. They were out of the box, inspected, thrown right back in the box, labeled with a Sharpie, and thrown in there for storage until it sells. That's what I do. And it does pretty well. When they sell, they do well. It takes forever, you know, because it's not a necessity, it's a luxury product that other people want to buy. That was a bad placement. It's a luxury item that other people want to buy, and I'm willing to sell it to them because I need money. So I treat them as investments to sell as, you know, quickly as I can for a profit. And I haven't lost any money on it. You know, it's sort of like, it's a buy and hold kind of thing. Guitars are incredibly long game things. Like, you buy one and it takes forever to sell it because, you know, people aren't out there, you know, buying them up left and right, you know, like tools, you know. They just see one and, you know, it's not an impulse buy to just go out there and, you know, grab a guitar. I'll tell you what is one, but I don't think it's a good investment. For me personally, maybe for you it is, which is computer parts. They sell absolutely ridiculously fast. Okay, they do sell very fast, but here's the problem: they depreciate really fast too. So if you're out there trying to flip PC parts, you're gonna buy it for probably retail, and then turn around and sell it for maybe $50 more, if that. And then by the time you ship it, by the time you ship it, the fees, all of that of the platform, you're not going to make much of anything. You know, it's just you're losing on that deal unless you are able to get an insane price on something that's really wanted. But you have to, it's high risk because once again, once the new one comes out, that one drops like a rock. Guitars don't do that. You know, they actually a lot of times appreciate pretty well as long as it's a good brand that people want. You know, they can at least appreciate or hold their value. A graphics card or processor does not. It just drops like a rock. It drops probably faster than a car does. So that's more like, I would say that's more of a high risk thing, but it's also a high risk, low reward, I think. You know, because like I've sold. The reason I know this is because I never did that as a thing trying to make money. I did it because I would upgrade my PC, then I would just sell the parts, and usually I get back, you know, almost what I paid for it a lot of times, you know, or close. But I'd never profit on it ever. I would always lose $50 to $100 on whatever I'm selling. So definitely not something I would invest in for retail. And that's another thing, actually. I used to work in retail for many years. And one of the things was I actually work for Best Buy. And this is many years ago. This is like over 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago. I worked for them. And something I learned is that these companies, Best Buy and Staples and Office Depot, if they're still around, all these people, the reason they bother you so much for like the upgrades, you know, the protection plan, that was one thing that they always pushed hard. And if you didn't sell it, oh my God, you know, it was the end of the world kind of thing. It was outrageous how hard they pushed those things, because it was free money to them, because they were just basically drop shipping a warranty to another company that was not us. It wasn't a whole thing where you could just, you know, well, at the time it wasn't us, but I don't know how they worked it, but basically I think they do it now, but it used to be that you would have to deal with the warranty company and not just bring it to us to fix it in-house kind of thing. I think Best Buy does it in-house now, or did. I'm not sure. I don't keep up with it, but yeah, that was a problem. So they what was I saying? Oh yeah, they don't make money on the computer itself. A lot of times didn't. I know Best Buy didn't when I was there. What they'll do is they'll rather sell the computer at a loss or sell it at an incredibly low margin. And what they do is they basically use a computer as the what they call the printer model, or the razor model. The razor model's as another one. It's like sell them the razor, give them the razor, sell them the blades, you know, kind of thing. Like they sell the item at a loss, but then they make their money by selling you the accessory to keep it going, kind of thing. So instead of making money on the laptop, they'll sell you the upgrade, and that's where the pure profit was, because, you know, they could get a bulk deal on Norton, you know, Norton antivirus, which is crap. But, you know, that's what they would sell, was, you know, they'll sell you the antivirus. And antivirus was an incredibly easy sell to people because they don't want a virus. And that was, I wish that was my money, because seriously, they just made a killing on Norton antivirus alone back then. This is back in like the Windows XP, Windows 7. No, was it Windows 7? I think it was 7. I think I just remember whatever era it was where the first Kindle Fire came out, because I remember that being, oh my God, that thing just sold just outrageous. You know, we had the Nook at some point, which was the Barnes and Noble version, and nobody cared. But the Kindle Fire came out, and holy crap, we could not keep them in stock. It was like the Nintendo Switch, you know, 2 or whatever. It's like, you know, you know, people would come in every day. Do you have a Kindle? Do you have Kindles? Do you have Kindle? All day. And it was just like, no, 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 no. You know, it was just constantly no's. You know, well, we can get you one online. No, I ain't interested. I want it today. All right, well, you know. But it was outrageous because it was a cheap tablet, you know, and people really wanted it like bad when it first came out. It was way out there, man. And yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, they basically just sell you all that add-on stuff is what they make the money on. They don't make it on the computer. I think GameStop is the same way, that they, on brand new games, they make, I've heard, I never worked there, but from what I knew a manager back in the day. He explained it to me. He said, new games, we might make $5 on it. You know, they sell it to us for 55 and we sell it for 60 kind of thing, you know, which sucks. But the used games, they'll make a massive markup because they'll only buy it for like, I don't know, pennies on the dollar, really. You know, and people wouldn't care, and they just would, you know, they'll just be like whatever about it, you know. And that's where they get the insane markups, like 50+%, I think. And that's how they make their money, because they'll buy a brand new game from you, I believe, was $60. And you could bring them the brand new game right after you bought it from Walmart, and they'll give you like $30 for it. And then they'll just turn around and put it for 55 on the shelf. That's where the money was. And then they would also, of course, sell you the magazine subscription or whatever, you know, Game Informer, the whatever, you know. And that was like $15 a year or something. I never understood, and maybe someone that worked there can explain it to me. It's not cheap to print in color, especially for books. And I've always kind of wondered, it's like, how do they make money $15 a year on the magazine? Maybe the magazine is the loss leader. It's like, you know, that's what they lose money on the magazine, but make money on you coming back for that measly 10% discount. But I never understood how they could profit off $15 a year for a magazine that probably cost about $5 to print, at least. And they would send it out like every month, I think. Which is crazy. So I looked it up between shots, and yeah, that's exactly what it was. The magazine cost them, according to ChatGPT, $2 to create, you know, to actually print it, and whatever amount to ship it. I don't know what that would have cost, but probably was like a loss, really. But the goal was to basically give you a perk of a quote-unquote free magazine that people may have actually enjoyed reading. I don't know. I haven't seen one in forever. You know, because I don't do console games and I don't shop at GameStop and haven't for, I don't know, long time. You know, especially with, because I buy my stuff on Steam now. I don't use GameStop. But that's what they basically do, is they use it as a perk to make you get in the door, and then they trick you with that 10% discount on a game. So let's say that, you know, games are ridiculous now, like $70. So let's just say 10%. I don't know if 10%, if this is the right math, but I think 10% off of that would be $7 or something. So you save $7, but you also spent $70 on this game that they paid maybe, you know, half that if it's a used copy, or even less. You know, that's where the money is. And then they give you that quote unquote measly 10% return for, you know, like if you sold them one of your used games and they say, you know, give you like half or even less for it. You know, what's 10%? It's an extra $1 or $2, but then they turn around and sell it for like double what they gave you anyway. So that's where it was, basically. That's capitalism. I don't do anything like that, but my selling is basically I buy limited edition guitars and also limited edition other products, and I buy them at retail. At retail, I don't get a discount. I tried, but they never answered me. The company I mainly sell for, but then I turn around and I sell it for a profit when it goes away, but not for a huge, not like a scalper, I don't do some outrageous thing, but I basically can buy it for like, let's just say $400, $600, whatever. Then I can turn around and sell it for $8, a modest profit. When you take into account I have to pay fees and I have to pay, shipping, because, the stuff is free shipping, so at the end, it's like a, 25-30% margin maybe. So, and then, but you move fast and, that's how you work, you buy what will sell at some point, and then you just reap the profits when it shows up. Speaking of stuff to sell, if you're still awake, I do sell a vault of my reaction content if you want something more comedic, and it's on Patreon, link in the description. That's all I'll say about it. I'm not gonna give you a hard sell like some creators do, where they go on like 2-minute tangents about every flavor of coffee. Let's just say that, where it's like a 2-minute tangent, just distracting. Just every video is just a long, hard pitch about a coffee, like overpriced coffee on Amazon. And it's like, bro, stop. Your audience is tired of it. Just say, check out my coffee on Amazon. Let's move on. That's all you have to do. No one's going to listen to like a 2-minute pitch and be like, I wasn't going to buy your coffee, but now I hear that you have all these different flavors that, sound good. Like, no, they're just like, bro, shut up. Whether they want to, like, I think people generally know, if they want to buy something or not up front. Like, if I was like, just sort of like I did with the vault thing. You hear Johnny has a vault, of his old content that I might want to check out for $5, and that's it. That's all you got to know. And you can basically, in your own mind, you immediately know, yes, I would buy that, or no, I would not buy that. There's no need for like, see, that's why most commercials are short on TV. They're usually like 30 seconds. And most of that time, the 30 seconds isn't even the product. It's some type of skit to make you laugh or remember, Remember the J.G. Wentworth, it's my money and I want it now. Everybody remembers. I remember that, I don't know what J.G. Wentworth even sells, but I remember I want my money now. It's my money and I need it now, or whatever it was. See what I mean? Like, basically, that's what they do. They set up a skit that's funny or memorable, and then at the very end of it, they're like, oh yeah, well, buy this, and that's it. They don't go on some tangent where it's like they stop your TV show and then give you a 2-minute pitch about coffee flavors. That's basic marketing. You need to be unintrusive as possible, where it's not, people going, oh, this again, kind of thing. Because most people already know, for me, all right, let's put it this way. For me, let's just say for me, would I buy coffee that's 20% more expensive than what I buy from Folgers or Green Mountain or whatever it is, the Keurig brand or whatever I can basically buy at Walmart just because some YouTuber made it? No, of course not. And no 2-minute pitch about, expensive coffee is going to make me change my mind and say, you know what, I will pay that a lot of extra for something that I drink every morning, It's It's like, no, I'm good. I don't even watch that creator very much, but I'm just saying, you know, I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about. Pretty obvious, but yeah, it's just those ad reads, you know, and the AVGN, who I love, and don't think I don't love him. I love his content, and I always have. Even his bad stuff was at least watchable. The only one I really am a little bit upset about really is the Immortal, because I was really hoping for a much better episode than that, you know, for that game, and I've been waiting forever to see a video on that game, and I might eventually do it, but I doubt it, because it's such a difficult and not very relaxing game to play. I screwed that up. I just took an L too, so that's the computer is beating me just bad. Let's just go to level single again. Yeah, he does he opens his video with these super long ad reads for a VPN company. I won't say who, but because I don't support that particular company personally, but you know, it's just he does these super long reads, and I get it that that's how he makes money, because they probably demonetize everything he makes because he says bad words, and I'm fine with him making money on it. I'm glad he makes money on that particular thing, but the ad is intrusive, and it just makes you want to skip, you know, because it's just like, dude, just stop. Just say this video is brought to you by VPN X or whatever. You don't need to go on a long tangent about what the VPN is every single episode. People don't like being advertised to. They just don't. Most people are not persuaded by advertising either. That's why I like to sell my own stuff that I made, you know, video vaults and early access to stuff, because I'm not promoting another company that may be telling me to lie about their product, basically, because a lot of those VPN companies are just flat out lying to you. And the creator doesn't care. They don't know or they don't care. You know, I would personally not buy many of the I'll just say I don't want to sabotage anyone's ad reads, but I personally wouldn't buy many of these VPN products that they promote for a variety of reasons. And the biggest problem is that they promise you things that just they're not real. You know, it's like you can browse anonymously. No, you can't. No, you can't. That's not what a VPN does, and all those companies lie about that. That's their big selling point, is they'll make you anonymous on the internet. No, it won't. No, it won't. I mean, it does some things. It helps make you a little more private, maybe, but it's a threat model thing. So what does that mean? It means that I'm trying to think of a simple way to put this. Okay, so you have a wallet, right? And your wallet holds your debit card, okay? That's a form of threat model, where you have your wallet to hide your debit card from anybody that's, you know, around, you know, the store that could, you know, take a picture of your debit card and then use it, you know, to buy their stuff online or steal your money, basically, right? That's a threat model. So your goal is to have a wallet to hide your debit card from other people, right? So that works, but some people think, okay, well, there's people out there with scanners that can scan my debit card, and I don't have any wallets to sell you. I'm just trying to explain this to you. if you are listening or care. They have these things like called RFID blockers, which basically, in theory, I don't know if they work or not, make it where someone can't scan your stuff. So people would pay the extra few dollars to put one of these RFID blocking cards that's about the size of a credit card in their wallet. And I personally do that because it doesn't really cost anything and it adds no weight to the wallet. So I personally do that just because why not? And it only costs me like $5-10 on Amazon, right? That's a threat model. But with a VPN, it doesn't make you anonymous. Nothing does. Because, if there was a product that could make you anonymous on the internet, it just would be shut down by the feds immediately. That's just not how they operate at all. That's one big part of it. There was a email service. I don't know how long ago it was, but there was an email service at one point called Lava Link. I think it was Lava something. And it really was NSA unbreakable. It was one time they actually pulled that off. Well, the government basically went in there and was like, no, we're not going to have this. And they forced him to shut down under threats and whatever they did. So you tell me, does your $60 or $70 subscription per year to a VPN hide you from the feds? No. Does it hide you from your ISP? Maybe. Does it hide you from websites trying to see where you're coming from? Probably, yeah. But, you got to think almost every website is hosted by Microsoft, Google, Amazon, or independent in some cases. But almost all of them are hosted on those cloud services. Especially if you're using like a WordPress site, which most people are running basically. So, because they're run by this, these are companies that their entire model of business is advertising, almost. Microsoft sells products and so does Google, but it's almost all advertising for their money, including Facebook. So, they have a commercial incentive to know who you are, what you browse, what you do with your computer so they can sell to you. And they're willing to invest billions of dollars in finding out how to sell to you because that's how they make money. So to think that a $70 subscription to anything is going to stop them is a lie. So what's a VPN good for? It's good for having a secure connection to another computer. That's the big thing for it. So if you're running an office, a lot of virtual offices use that as a connection thing, right? It's also good if you're trying to, I don't know if it's good for this, but it's also good to basically avoid people hacking into your stuff in a coffee shop. So if you use your computer, your laptop, your phone in a public Wi-Fi, like at McDonald's or whatever, library or whatever you're at, it's good for that so people can't snoop on that if they are there trying to steal your stuff, which I don't know if they are, but I doubt it. But, it's a good layer for that. That's legitimate. And, or if you want to watch streaming services, if they even can at this point. I think a lot of them are blocking it now. Like if you wanted to watch like shows that are Netflix and, UK or Netflix in America or whatever, you can get some extra access to shows. That's one of the biggest selling points. That's true. Anonymous on the internet? No, it's not a thing. Internet wasn't built for that. Internet was not built for anonymous connections. It was built to have trusted computers talk to each other on actual networks in the military. That's what it was built for, originally. That's what it is. They're not, there's no reason to be anonymous on the network. So they didn't build it for that. And there's also a lot of stuff that's out there. They're basically like biometrics, where according to Eli the computer guy, and I believe him on this actually, Google and them have basically ways that they can track you based on even how fast you type something into Google. You know, that they have it down to like the nanosecond, really. So a lot of these tracking companies like Google and Microsoft, they don't even care about your ISP. They don't even care about your IP anymore, which is what your VPN hides. They don't even care. They have other ways. They figured out other ways to surveillance you. So if you're trying to hide from Google, you can't. You can't. The internet's built on it. You're at some point they're gonna see that it's you. Even if you use a VPN, proxy servers, you know, or whatever. By the way, Tor is a honeypot. Don't use that crap. That's the feds are watching Tor like a hawk. They have entire departments, I'm sure, that just watch Tor all day. Like, you know, honestly, I'll be 100% real with you. Anything that claims to be private, you know, it's like whether it's Graphene OS or Calyx OS or any OS, any VPN, any, you know, email provider that says, you know, we're private and, you know, your stuff is encrypted and all this other buzzword stuff. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I think a lot of those are actually created by the FBI to, you know, it makes you a bigger target if you're using like Session or Signal or anything like that. I'm not saying that they're Fed assets, but they probably are. Let's be real. I mean, why? Like they exist and they operate in the U.S. and they're going to be used by people who most likely are up to no good because they're trying to hide from, you know, the feds or the Google, you know, and big tech as they call it. So what's the easiest way to find these people and see what they're doing? Go to where they are, which is these apps like Signal and Session and Telegram. And they're basically giving them a false sense of security that ends up biting them in the butt later. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why is there no news story about this? Because they suppress it. Why would they let you know? Why would they show you their hand of cards and how they catch these criminals that you never hear about? Because it would make it where people would know that these things are being used for that by the law enforcement, and it would make people not use it, which would in turn take away their tool. So anytime you hear all this, you know, this encryption this, or, you know, privacy that, or, you know, escape big tech, escape Google, escape advertisers, escape, you know, the FBI or whatever, it's BS. Don't listen to that. It's probably, you know, even more tracked than Google Chrome. Because it's putting a target on your back. So the moral of the story is don't commit crimes, or, you know, if you watch Liar Liar, you know, stop breaking the law, a-hole. I'm sure a lot of lawyers, I doubt any lawyers ever said that though, because that's how they make money, is people being dumb and committing crimes. They probably love it. I know my lawyer loved it when he screwed me on some stuff he screwed me on. I'm not going to go into that because that's legal stuff, but I got a $3,200 bill for what I thought was going to be paid for by the estate, and it wasn't, and I had to pay it. And I didn't know I was actually being charged for it because I thought the estate was doing it, because the whole point was to establish. I don't want to talk about that. We're gonna drop that topic. But it was a state drama, and I ended up having to pay $3,200 for that. And after that, I stopped talking to my lawyer, and I was like, you know what, bro? I didn't know that. I thought we were doing something else, and I know you said that you represented me, but I thought you meant me as in the estate, because I was supposed to be the executor. And it turned out that I ended up not being that, and that's fine. I'm not mad about that part, but after hearing that it was basically a big old pile of crap that I had to clean up, I was just like, all right, whatever, and I just stopped talking to him. I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything to him. I'm not going to answer the emails. I'm not going to do any of that because I'm not the executor. It's not my problem. They pick somebody else. That's fine. Let them deal with it. Just stay out of it, because I have no legal obligation to maintain or maintenance the thing. But if if the executor calls me and is like, hey, can I get, tell me about XYZ so I can work on it, sure. But lawyer, nah, man, we don't. We've already lost the case, so I'm not going to pay any more money to continue losing the case. I just want to support the executor the best I can. Let him do his thing, and if he needs me, he knows I'll help. If he doesn't need me, I'll shut up and stay out of the way. That's the best thing to do for me. It's not my business. It's not my legal duty. There's nothing in the law saying I have to be part of this whole thing. So I'm staying out of it. But if he asks, I will give, because I want his life to be easier, because he didn't ask to be this position, and he was just kind of forced into it. And he was the only one, well, not the only one, he was one of the only ones in the entire situation that wasn't a massive turd when it all went down. So I appreciated that, and decided to not be a burden on him as much as I could be, not a burden. Because he has enough going on with he has a newborn baby, and I don't know how old she is now, but he had a daughter, and he got married, and I don't know what he's got going on. I stay out of that entirely, but I would hope that if I was the person who did get selected, which is what I was hoping would happen, that people would be willing to assist me, with questions I had. That was my thing about it. But otherwise, I leave him alone, and I don't want to bother him or stress him out or put my nose in it, because it's not my place anymore. But I do respect him and his position as the executor, so he knows that if he needs help, that I'm more than willing to do anything he needs to help him with this situation. Money, or if it's rather money, or he needs, whatever he needs, I'm willing to help him. Money, information, just handling different things where he doesn't have to travel so far. Whatever it is, I'm right here. I'm ready to do that for him. because it's a very stressful job. You know, it's a very stressful duty that that he didn't ask for. And, he's really doing a good job. So anything I can do to help him, I want to. And whatever the final decision is about all that stuff that, you know, whatever it comes down to, I'm just going to have to do what I have to do, and that'll be it. You know, when the time comes, I'll make that decision on what I decide to do about, you know, those questions that will come up later. But I'm not rolling in cash, that's for sure. So if you're still listening and you want to help, become a member. It's only $5 a month. I would appreciate it a lot if you did. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to give you a long pitch about it or guilt trip you, but if you have $5 laying around and you want to help, if I've helped you over the years or helping you now, it would help me a lot if you were to be willing to do that. I did watch DSP though, and I was like, oh my God, bro. Like when he begs, I was thinking ever asking for money or donations or anything was begging, because that's what it used to be. You know, people would claim it was like that, but no, what he was doing was legit begging. He's like, we need to get these tips up. We need to get these tips up. And I'm like, bro, you don't need to get the tips up. You know, you're not a waitress. You put out a product, you offer someone something to buy, you know, like early access to your videos or, you know, private phone calls or something. You sell them something. You don't just demand money just for existing, because he treats it like, you know, he's showing up and he's treating it like a regular job, which I get and I sympathize with. Somewhat the idea that you show up so you should get paid, but you understand that this job is paid in two ways. It's paid from ad revenue, which comes from views, and then it's paid by purchasing merchandise or memberships where you offer a product that someone wants to pay for on a monthly basis, like a subscription. You know, that's what it is. So the people are already paying with their viewership. It's a very small amount they're paying with their viewership per person, but that's the thing, you know. It's not a wage job. It's a commission job. That's really what YouTube is. It's a commission job, it's not a charity, unless you're a charity, you know, show. It's not a charity. It's not a it's not a salary job. It is a commission job. You get commissions from merchandise, affiliate links, you know. You get a commission even from memberships, because part of that goes to YouTube. A lot of it goes to YouTube. 30% goes to YouTube from any memberships you give, any super chats you give. 30% goes to YouTube, and you're earning basically a commission from that, you know, by making them purchase this YouTube product, you know. So you're a salesman. Your job is being a salesman that makes commission. You're basically a car salesman. You're selling a product. You are the product, and you're selling the add-ons. You are the loss leader. Your time is the loss leader in this situation, like the magazine. The loss leader is the bait And the product is the membership, the super chat, the Patreon, the affiliate link. So, I feel like Phil doesn't understand that, and that's why he gets a lot of hate for that, is that he doesn't understand what business he's in. Where he understands what business he's in, but he doesn't want to be in that business. He wants to be in, you know, a salary position. You know, that's the thing. Phil needs to sell something. He needs to sell something beyond his own time. He needs to make a product, some merchandise. He needs to do something where it's not just constantly, you know, let's get these tips up. Let's get these tips up constantly, you know, because that makes people hate him. He also needs to work on those titles, because those titles are atrocious. I say this as a guy that doesn't get anywhere near as many views, but I don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers and only pull 600 or 700 views per video average. It's because his titles are awful. Like, he puts zero effort into his titles or SEO or anything trying to actually make this remotely appealing to the strangers that will see his content show up in their feed. How long have I been playing this? Oh, that's not bad. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Become a member if you enjoyed this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.